back to Nuzhat ma'am ke online classes. In last lecture of chapter number 6, we got familiar with the concept of classes and object. So here in part 2 of this chapter, we will study about the types of relationship between classes, that is aggregation and composition. Today we will take a closer look at one of the important principles of object-oriented programming, that is inheritance. So let's start our very first interesting topic, that is aggregation and composition. In real life, complex objects are often built from simpler objects. For example, a personal computer is built from a CPU, a motherboard, keyboard, mouse, memory, monitor screen and others parts. Here, I can say a motherboard is a part of computer, or I can say that the computer has a motherboard. In the same way, I can say that the computer has a screen. See in the diagram, I have a class named motherboard with the attribute model and company. And here you can see I have a class screen with the attribute length, width and model. Here when I will define the computer class, it will contain the attribute MB, that is the object of motherboard class, and SER, that is the attribute of the screen class. So here I can say that computer class contain attributes that are object of class screen and motherboard. So when object of one class are composed of object of other class, it is called aggregation or composition. Or you can say that when an object has a or a part of relationship with another object between classes, then we have got an aggregation or composition relationship between them. Here we will take one more example of person class. Every person has a name and an address. Here we will build complex person class from two or more simpler class, that is name and address. Here you can see that the name of the person can be further divided into first name, middle name and last name. So that is the attribute of the name class. Here you can see the address class that is further divided into house, street, state and pin code. So that will be the attribute of the address class. Here I will build the person class with the attribute nm that refer to the object of name class, and then I will take the attribute addr that refer to the attribute of the address class. So this way I am including the object of that class. So indirectly I am getting all such attribute of the address class here. No need to rewrite the same thing again. Here nm will give the attribute like first name, middle name and last name. We can say that the class person contains the object of class name and address. We got familiar with the basic concept of aggregation and composition. Now we will move to our next topic, that is the difference between aggregation and composition. Here we will consider the relationship between a person and their home address. Every person has an address. However, that address can belong to more than one person at a time. When a person is deleted, the corresponding address cannot be deleted. Therefore, a person and address is an aggregated relationship. Consider one more example of a team and a player. Every team has a multiple player, but a player can exist without any team. Here team and player is an aggregated relationship. Aggregation represents non-exclusive relationship between two classes. In aggregation, the class that form part of the owner class can exist independently. Here we have seen the example of player that can exist without any team, as well as we have seen the example of address. That address class can exist without being present of owner class, that is the person class. The life of an object of the part class is not determined by the owner class. The life of the address class is not determined by the person class. Or we can say that the aggregation implies a weak relationship where the child can exist independently of the parent. Here you have to remember aggregation is represented using an empty diamond symbol next to the whole class, and it is a non-exclusive relationship. Now we will see the concept of composition. Consider the example of human and a heart. Here human object contain the heart, and the heart cannot exist without human. When a human is created, the heart is created too. When a human die, the heart is destroyed too. If we delete person, heart will be automatically deleted. Composition represents exclusive relationship between two classes. Composition is a strong type of aggregation where the lifetime of the class depends on the existence of the owner class. Composition implies a relationship where the child cannot exist independent of the parent. If an object of aggregating class is deleted, its part class object also get deleted. Here in this example, we will see the relationship between name and person. For simplicity, we will say that name is associated exclusively with a single person. Here we will assume that no other person having name Nuzhat other than me. Composition represent exclusive relationship and are represented using filled diamond. So remember it. The class that contain object of other class is known as owner class or whole class or aggregating class. Person is the owner class or whole class or aggregating class because it contains the object of name class as well as address class. Now, next thing is the class that is contained in owner class is known as subject class or part class or aggregated class. Here, name and address is subject class or part class or aggregated class. Now we will move to our next interesting topic, that is inheritance. Inheritance is everywhere in real life. When you were conceived, you inherited your parents' genes and acquired physical attribute from both of them. But then you added your own personality even. In last topic, we came to know that when an object has a or a part of relationship with another object between classes, then we have got an aggregation or composition relationship between them. But in inheritance, we have easy relationship between two classes. Inheritance is a mechanism wherein new class is derived by inheriting the method and property of existing class. Here, existing class is also known as superclass, parents class or base class, whereas new class is known as subclass, child class or derived class. Take an example of teacher and a person. Teacher inherited future from person. As teacher is a kind of person, teacher can reuse code from the base class, that is the person class. Teacher may have same attribute and behavior which were in person class like name, city, gender. So no need to write thousands of lines again in teacher class. Here we will use the concept of inheritance so that teacher class can access the attribute and method of the person class, plus we can have additional attribute like subject and method like lecture he or she take, that we will write in teacher class. Here each and every person may not take lecture, but every teacher take lecture. So that lecture method is not included in person class but included in teacher class. So here we can say that inherited feature provide reusability where existing method can be reused without redefining. In others words, the data attribute and method of the superclass are available to the object in the subclass without rewriting their declaration. Inheritance help in reusing the code and establishing a relationship between different classes. Here, we will see the definition of inheritance. Inheritance is the capability of defining a new class of object that inherited the characteristic of another existing class. In class diagram, inheritance is represented using an arrow pointing to superclass. Creating a superclass is called generalization, and creating a subclass is known as specialization. Here we can say that generalization is another name for inheritance or is a relationship. It refers to a relationship between two classes where one class is a specialized version of another. Common attribute and method are defined in superclass, that is the person class here, and subclass, that is the teacher class, is a specialized version with additional attribute and method. While explaining relationship between a teacher and a person, I told teacher is a kind of person. So here person is a superclass and teacher is a subclass. The attributes which are in common between the teacher and person class like name, city, gender are written in superclass, that is the person class. The teacher class may have additional or specialized property other than this inherited property. For example, subject taken by teacher is written in specialized class, that is teacher class. So we can conclude that teacher class is a specialized class and person class is a generalized class with common attribute and method. Now we will see different type of inheritance. In multi-level inheritance, there exists single base class, single derived class, and multiple intermediate base classes. Suppose we make three classes, that is person class, employee class, and a teacher class. Here, class employee can be derived from a class person. Then class teacher can be derived from employee class. So here, employee is a kind of person and teacher is a kind of employee. Such kind of inheritance is known as multi-level inheritance. Relationship between grandfather, father and child is also multi-level inheritance. Now we will see multiple inheritance. In multiple inheritance, there exist multiple base classes and single derived class. In multiple inheritance, a child class can be derived using more than one parents or base class. For example, a child inherited the characteristic of both mother and father. Here we will take one more example. Airplane is a kind of vehicle as well as flying object. So here airplane class is derived from two or more base class, that is multiple inheritance. And last topic for today's lecture is composition versus inheritance. In inheritance, class inherited from other classes in order to share, reuse or extend functionality. In inheritance, we have easy or a kind of relationship between two classes, that is superclass and subclass. Whereas composition build has a relationship. Here you can see Facebook is a social networking site. So relationship between Facebook and social networking site is inheritance. Whereas Facebook has a millions of users. So the relationship between Facebook and user is an aggregation or composition. In composition, classes do not inherit from other classes but are composed of other classes. Class contain the attribute where some attribute are object of other class type. We have seen the example of name and address that was included in the person class. Chapter number 6 get over here. That is all for the day. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned in for the next video.